Hello, everyone, and welcome to the CEO and Market Expert Interviews. I'm your host, Lucian. Some of you know me as Triangle Investor from X or former Twitter. Today, I'm joined by Paul Goranson, enCore Energy Chief Executive Officer. Paul, welcome back to my show. I always enjoy talking to you. Thank you for coming.
Well, I'm glad to be invited back. I'm really excited to visit with you today.
Thanks, Paul. First of all, congratulations are in order. You had a grand opening of Rosita Central ISR uranium processing plant a few days ago. I heard it was really a very good event, and that the guests got your guest got their yellow cake served as well. Is that correct?
That's right. We were expecting about 180 people, and I think 300 people were in attendance, and quite a few people from the investment community, as well as government officials, and quite a large crowd from the local community with a lot of interest in what we're doing. It was a lot of fun. Got to see people I hadn't seen in years. It was a really great event.
Definitely. I saw some pictures and I have to agree. I was invited. Thank you. I got the invitation, but I couldn't come. Sorry. But
Yeah.
definitely one of the major and great events this year when it comes to uranium companies. Tell me more about the impressions you got from this grand opening. What were you had a chat with all sorts of people and government people and business people, like you said. What are the impressions? Tell me more.
Well, it was actually a very well attended. As I mentioned, attendance is way up, but I had a chance to talk with a lot of different people that were there. We had quite a few people from the state regulatory offices, and they were very complimentary in everything we've done. Some of them had, because uranium operations hadn't been happening in Texas for over 10 years. We have new folks. And so they got a chance to see it in action, which they hadn't been able to do in quite some time. So that was a very positive outcome. I think probably the most rewarding discussions were with some of the local county officials and school district officials because of the interest in the careers and jobs we bring to the local community. That seemed to be, it was there was a lot of discussion back and forth. While we were there, I announced that we're doing a scholarship program for focusing on our local communities to help them with their education, and we're looking to get to support people who are going after education that's in line with the type of needs we need for our business.
Yeah.
And hopefully they become employees sometime in the future and stay in the community rather than being forced to move away. And that's a big deal for the local folks.
Definitely.
And we had former Governor Rick Perry, former Secretary of Energy. He was a very great speaker, invoked a lot of discussion. We had field offices from our U.S. senators and U.S. House of Representatives there that we were able to engage on quite a few issues that are with them that are important to uranium production in Texas, but also our country's, the United States, own energy security. So it was covered a lot of ground, and then people got to see what yellow cake, not only the cake that they got to eat, but they could see what yellow cake looked like in real life, and it is yellow.
Yeah. Paul, what is the production plan for Rosita? And if you could share some next steps and timelines for that.
So we started up Rosita Extension. It's a relatively small, it's an extension of a formerly producing well field. We have another satellite operation we're advancing right now that's going to feed into Rosita, hopefully to start at the end of this year, early next year, to continue to increase the production through Rosita. We want to get it up to capacity, and then also at that point explore whether we want to add capacity or restart Kingsville Dome for the capacity option it provides. But we're going to keep evaluating that over the next 12 months. But the exciting thing is that we're making the new satellite project we're bringing in. We call it Upper Spring Creek, is going through permitting. Right now, we're almost done with some of the more significant permitting activities, and We intend to get up there and start putting in wells and wellfield and start building satellite plants as fast as we can. So we can get that into production to take advantage of today's current markets, deliver on what we said we're going to do, and make sure we get as much value out of the investment we have in Rosita as we can.
Yeah, if I read correctly, I think the number is around 500,000 pounds of 2024 production approximately, right?
Yeah, that's going to be combined between Alta Mesa and Rosita. And keep in mind, we're ramping up. So that will continue to increase production into 2025. But, it'll be for 2024, Alta Mesa will be the largest producer because the well field's much, much larger than the one at Rosita. And then Rosita will start pushing the numbers up once Upper Spring Creek kicks on. We'll be shooting for, that 500,000 or so this year, and then bumping up to 1 million to a little over 1 million next year, and then continuing to meet our target to reach that 3 million pound per year goal.
Okay. You mentioned Alta Mesa. Can you give us an overview and update on the deal to form strategic partnership between your company and Boss Energy? What was executed so far from this deal, etc.? If you can say more.
Well, we announced the signing of the agreement to do the joint venture. Obviously, whenever you do transactions like that, particularly when there's various items to get to closing, we're in the process of finalizing the closing that would complete the deal. And it's not difficult stuff. It's just things take time. You have regulatory approvals and everything else, but we're very, very, very close. Sorry to use so many descriptors, but it's very close. And the strategy, as we discussed in the past, is that the point is that Alta Mesa has a large enough capacity where we could get some value out of it by going into this joint venture without altering or significantly impacting our production plans for the future as enCore. But we can get value for the investment we put into Alta Mesa, but also we have what I would see as a reliable partner on the other side as a JV partner. Boss has got the management of Boss Energy has a strong, good reputation.
Yeah. And
we see them as a good partner on this. It'll be their first opportunity to do anything in the United States, which we, as you would expect, Australians and Americans, we talk a little different from each other. But I'm excited to get them aboard. We get a significant amount, the value of what we get for the 30% stake in Alta Mesa we sold to them is significant to us. It gives us quite a bit of, a lot of relief on the need for financing, because we'll have significant cash. As you know, it's $60 million cash for the 30% interest, plus another $10 million direct investment into the company, coupled with a strategic collaboration agreement with them on advancing our prompt fission neutron technology for uranium assays.
Mm-hmm.
But the main that we see is that gives us the cash, gives us the ability to advance our projects, put a little bit more priority on some of the ones we would be kind of deferring if we were going hand to mouth with our money, waiting for revenue and everything else. This gives us the ability to get a good push to get things moving, and give us a whole lot more certainty on achieving our strategy and our production plans. And it does it in a way, we diluted an asset, but we didn't dilute our shareholders to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And these days, that's really important, I think.
Of course, I agree. Just another question about Alta Mesa. Your wellfield drilling is providing increasingly positive high-grade results from wellfield delineation drill program. Just a quick comment on that, please.
So I won't say I'm surprised by the numbers, because, as you know, I've known the project for years. But I'm very pleased with the results we're seeing, and what we published. We're seeing continuation, basically an extension of what we've already published and put out in the public. which means that the production is going to be delivered as we expect it will, if not better. The one thing that I've known about Alta Mesa is that the more drilling we do, we don't reduce our resources. We typically add our resources to it because you get better definition of the roll fronts, better control. But it also allows us to more efficiently produce uranium because we have better control where the ore body is. Costs a little bit more on the front side, but on the operating side, we save so much money and we're so much more efficient. And so that's what I've been very pleased about, is that my expectations of Alta Mesa have been living up to my expectations, which maybe outside of enCore, I have very high expectations. So to say it's living up to it is, I'd say, is a pretty strong statement. But for me, it's just my expectations.
Okay, good to hear that. Looking in the future, the goal for the company is to have 3 million pounds of U3O8 yearly production by 2026 and 5 million pounds U3O8 per year production rate by 2028. My question, Paul, is there a possibility to increase those numbers considering high price environment and high demand, of course?
Well, so the 3 million could be possibly, by 3 million, that's going to be coming out of Texas, combined between Rosita, Alta Mesa, and there's a potential we can increase beyond that, depending on timing, and that's what the Boss investment allows us to do. To get to 5 million, it's dependent on how advancing our Wyoming and South Dakota projects, both of which are advancing. We're advancing the permitting on Gas Hills, and we're well capitalized. Once we get our permitting issues completed for Dewey-Burdock, we'll be able to start advancing that one a lot quicker. We won't have to go out and finance to get it started. So that one's depending on timing. That's through the permitting process in Gas Hills. I think it's gonna be a horse race between the two of them. But the goal is to hit that. We'll hit that 5 million when we get both of those in operation, and that's why we set it at 2028, right? So yeah. I think that's right.
Yeah, 2028.
Yeah, and so to give us time to give us the ability to get all those goals and objectives done, and so they'll be the ones, the pipeline projects coming and fill up to that 5 million plus, right? But for the short period, we're going to be leveraging Texas, Alta Mesa, Rosita, and doing our best to push everything up to capacity and go beyond capacity.
Okay, how much of uranium sales agreements do you have in place right now, and what is the company's plan for locking new arrangements in the future?
So we've announced four contracts so far, and those total 3.65 million pounds of committed firm deliveries, with another 1.65 million in optional deliveries, and the options are down several years. So our current strategy right now is that we're wrapping up a few discussions we're having with some other utilities, but is that we're messaging to the uranium markets that because of where the uranium prices are, we're not actively looking to sign up more contracts. We want to wait and see what the market does, but also we want to be able to deliver on what we say we're going to do, rather than continue to try and lock. So right now our focus is 28 and beyond, and we want, that's where, if I'm going to do any any contracting, it's going to be beyond 28 and beyond. So we got some time. And the main thing is I don't want to commit to ceilings. We as you know, we use market related pricing, yeah. And we do have floors and ceilings, but I want to be able to establish ceilings that are representative of the market we're seeing, rather than trying to set something, guessing what it will be and do something lower. The biggest challenge we've had in all these discussions has been that the market's been moving faster than the response time to get back. So you make an offer, by the time they get back to you and say they like your offer, the market's already moved. And these things, these type of contracts are relationships, right? It's just like you and I would have a relationship as a business or whatever, you start establishing these relationships. You just can't just drop everything because the price moved on, unless it's something, you're real well, not very advanced on these discussions. But that's been always a challenge. That's why I told several of our potential utility customers that we're not looking to do anything right now until we get an idea what the market's going to look like 5-6 months from now.
Yeah, the price is stabilizing right now, but from your answer, I suggest that I believe that you are suggesting that the price is going to go higher, same as me. Okay. Do you have any numbers, projections for cash flow in the upcoming years for the company? You probably don't have the numbers in front of you, but what numbers are we talking here?
I don't have the numbers in front of me, so I couldn't give you quantities or ranges right now, simply because we're doing our financials right at the moment.
Okay.
And going forward, based on current pricing that we're seeing right now, the pricing we have and the agreements we've already put together, but also the market price, we believe will be positive cash flow by fourth quarter of this year, if not a little before that.
Okay.
And then we'll continue to generate cash revenue going forward, and we'll use that to supplement our capital needs along with the cash we already have, rather than go out to do equity financing.
Yeah.
But that's how we're looking at it for right now. I hate to get too forward looking on revenues at the moment, simply because it's all dependent on the snapshot we see today. But I do feel very comfortable we're going to have be seeing positive cash flow, cash returning back to the company rather than just everything going out. So that'll be fourth quarters when we expect to be able to report that.
Yeah, but your financial position is looking better. I mean, you had on February 12th announcement, full conversion of US 20 million promissory note into common shares. So the company is now debt free, and you could.
That's
right. So you don't have any debts anymore.
That's correct.
Yeah, that means definitely a lot. You mentioned the Kingsville Dome, but please expand a little bit on that current status and the next steps.
So Kingsville Dome is still on cold, what I would call cold standby. We're not, we have a skeleton crew there because we've moved everybody to Rosita to advance that project. But we have some people there, but it's really a production option. So it's already got drying capacity. It has about 800,000 pounds per year of capacity there. It requires some upgrades because it's very close to the coast, the Gulf of Mexico, so it's getting a lot of salt air. So a lot of the metal is, if you go out there, it looks kind of rusty, but the plant's fine. But we'll have to do some work on it just because it has been operated in a while. But it does provide us a production option. It's licensed. We don't have to do any additional licensing work or permitting work for it. So it remains an option for us. The only different, if you look on a map, it's one of the operations that's kind of farther away from everything else. So that's why we're kind of holding it for the moment to look at it as a production option. And what I want to see is get Rosita filled up first, and then do something with Kingsville Dome. It won't take long to bring Kingsville Dome back into production. Less than a year to do it. No different than what we did at Rosita. So I see that being keeping as a production option remains a valid strategy for Kingsville Dome. Okay.
Please expand a little bit also on Dewey-Burdock project, update on development of that project, please.
Well, we're currently, we're basically working on our permitting right at the moment. So Dewey-Burdock is fully licensed and permitted, but the permits and license has been challenged. We have prevailed on the NRC license, which is the core, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission license, which is the core authorization, and everything else, all the other authorizations, EPA permits and everything else, tier off of that. They're part of, they feed off of that license. But the courts have determined our license is valid and it is in full effect. And now the same challenges that were on our license were put onto the permits. These have been ongoing for a few years. Now we're going through the process of clearing those challenges, which we believe we will prevail, simply because it's the same arguments that we prevailed on with the NRC license. And the fact is that the NRC license is the senior authorization over the others. And so we believe that's going to move relatively fast. I was fully expecting that the NRC license was going to be appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court, and the interveners chose not to, which took about a year off of our timeline we were expecting. So we're looking to 18 months or so, but I think it'll go fast once we start we have our first hearings of oral arguments next month on the appeal at the EPA, and we'll be moving on beyond that. So I feel very confident about it, but that puts us about a year and a half or so before we can actually go spend capital out there. But we are doing a lot of work in Wyoming on what we call Dewey Terrace. So Dewey Terrace is an extension of the Dewey-Burdock ore body into Wyoming. It's been evaluated in the past. We have not published any results on it, but we're looking. It's about 15 miles from the Wyoming South Dakota border where Dewey-Burdock ends, and there's obviously uranium trends in between. So we're going to start drilling, expanding Dewey Terrace as a property, and if we can build up enough resource, we're going to go ahead and license it as a new facility as well, either as a satellite operation to Dewey-Burdock or its own standalone central processing plant with production. But it looks the data that our geologists are looking at right now. Now we haven't put any drill rigs up there yet, but we intend to. It's still winter there.
Yeah.
But the data looks really encouraging on seeing that Dewey Terrace becoming its own project.
Yeah, but you have more advanced project in Wyoming, Gas Hill project. It's a
yes,
PEA
Gas Hills.
It's a PEA project with good economics. Do you plan to push forward Gas Hills before that?
Yes. So we started the preliminary environmental studies that we have to do for permitting. So we have to do a year's worth of studies, and this is one where, as we mentioned about with the funding from BOSS, when you live hand to mouth, for lack of a better phrase, you defer certain activities, right? To spend our priority is getting the production, so the money and all the people were focused on going into production, and so we weren't able to focus as much on Gas Hills as we would have liked. Now we have the ability to do that, and so we've already started doing the environmental work. That's where you do the wildlife studies, the vegetation studies, the water studies, and the air studies and everything else. Those have already started. But now we'll have the money to be able to fund getting people up there and actually doing some real work on Gas Hills to take that from a PEA project to a really well-designed wellfield and everything else to move us forward into licensing. So we could conceivably file for our license and permits as early as late this year.
Okay. Paul, what about Crownpoint and Hosta Butte project?
Those projects are still on the pipeline, but we've really moved them way down the calendar. And there's a real reason why is that it's not the quality of the projects. Quality of the projects is fantastic. If you look at the numbers and they are very amenable to in situ recovery.
Yeah.
Their economics will be decent, and
it's more than 30 million U3O8 over there.
Yes, that's right. It's a real gem, and but the challenge is New Mexico itself. The U.S. the states have some of their own rules and everything else, and their ability to they're not the regulatory process in New Mexico is far more challenging than Texas and Wyoming. Yeah. And even South Dakota. So we've pushed that out because we're going to have to do a lot of work. Where we have to do the work is that we have to continue to look at it from the regulatory perspective. But the other thing is that in the interim, we also have to build a social license out there as well. A lot of uranium has come from the area where Crownpoint, Hosta, Butte's located in the past, and that's very close to the Navajo Nation, which is a tribal lands, and in the past, the U.S. government has basically allowed the mining to occur and leave basically a legacy out there in New Mexico, and so it's created a rather negative, social impact for uranium mining. And what we see is the issue is that we got to do a couple of things. One is that the U.S. government needs to live up to its obligations to finish cleaning up the mess it created on those lands. That's what's needed, and from a action side. And we also start out to building our social license for the communities to demonstrate that enCore is a good, responsible operator. And we've already started some of that work. But it's not something you can flip a switch and turn on. You have to really spend time and invest the time into those communities, because they're just as important right now, in our opinion, as the regulatory agencies are. And so we pushed it out the calendar on the pipeline to give us time to act on that, to continue to build that social, build up that area so we can get the local community supporting us.
Okay, I think we covered your projects. Let's move to technology. You have PFN technology. It's prompt fission neutron, I think, technology. Have you achieved any new milestones? Tell me more about the technology.
We really haven't achieved a lot of new milestones since we acquired technology. Keep in mind, we've only had it since May of last year.
Yeah, right.
And so what the main thing we're doing is trying to get people trained on operating it and maintaining it. The technology is it's a game changer, I believe, in situ recovery, because you can get near real time in situ assay as you possibly can using this technology. Otherwise, we'd have to be taking cores and waiting weeks to get the results back. So this is a very valuable technology, but it's also it requires maintenance. It's a tool that it generates neutrons that it shoots out into the formation and activates the uranium-235 atoms to get us a real reading on it. But because of that, it does have equipment that you have to maintain. And no one, I would say in the industry, no one's really used PFN technology regularly until we started in 2022. The people who built it are no longer in the business. One guy left, and he's far retired. He's retired. He's helping us a lot, but we got to bring in some new people. And one of the first things to do is getting in competent operators to operate the equipment and maintain it. I believe we've done that. We've been able to show the results over and over again out, and the results we published for Alta Mesa is a testament to that. But we need to advance the technology. We need to be able to work within the equipment, and that's one of the things Boss brings in the strategic collaboration agreement we have with them, is that they have access to people in Australia who have worked on the tools in the past, and not just operate them, but help build them and everything else. And we believe that there's ways to advance the technology. A good example is the computer systems that operates on in the logging equipment. It's Windows 2007. You turn it on, it still has that the screen and sound that it gives you flashbacks to the early 2000s.
Yeah.
And again, Microsoft doesn't support that software anymore. So we need to get it upgraded to newest software, and that way we can use new computers with better security, cybersecurity, but also better quality equipment, and more reliable systems. So that's what we're doing. So we're going to be transitioning over that, and I see Boss is going to be bringing some stuff to the table to help facilitate that advancement of the technology. We want to be able to provide it to be able to use it ourselves to get the best, most reliable results in the future, and also build PFN 2.0, so to speak. And then potentially, but it could be a business center for us as well.
Okay, and how are things going with Group 11? Has there been any progress there lately?
Not a lot lately. Group 11's been very quiet. And it's mainly because the gold industry, it's a technology that is being advanced to develop ways to in situ recovery other metals, principally gold. And it needs investment to be able to advance to do more work. And if you've been following the gold sector, it's been very hard to get good solid investment to advance projects. So it's kind of been sitting there. We rely on some of the Group 11 people who work within Group 11 for some of our business aspects, some of the technology discussions and everything else. But I think right at the moment, we're looking for as an investor in Group 11, we're looking ways to provide additional business opportunities, whether it's looking at ways to recover uranium where both low pH or alkaline leach like we use isn't going to be effective. And where you have little water, with water's limited, access to water, et cetera. So we're looking at that type of approach. So we're continuing to work with them on trying to advance that. But I would say it hasn't been a whole lot of effort in that simply because of the need for funding.
Okay. Paul, what's your plan with Nuclear Fuels Company? You had an ownership of 19.9% in the company. Do you still have that percent owned, or that changed?
Yes, we do. So even they just recently did a financing. We basically supported that financing to hold our 19.9% interest. We find nuclear fuels to be a really valuable investment. If you recall from the deal, is that on the KC project that they hit certain results and had a certain resource number, we have the ability to, as a call, to claw back into a majority ownership of the project. And so we're watching it, and we certainly follow their results very closely. As you know, we have two people on their board of directors. Bill Sheriff, our executive chairman, is their independent chairman of the board, or non-executive. And so we do provide technical support to them, but solely as a kind of an indirect one-off type of deal, because they have their own people, and it looks like they're actually getting some good results, and I'm pretty excited about it. It's a good project area. Some of the other properties they have look interesting, so I would say that it's a worthwhile investment, and our effort to support nuclear fuels has been a very positive one for us.
Okay. Paul, M&A targets, there is a lot of speculation on social medias. Since you have a big portfolio of assets, are you considering any new acquisitions? And if yes, what kind of projects or companies would be on your radar?
So we're always on the lookout for M&A opportunities, simply because they're a way to, rather than going out and doing greenfield exploration, develop new projects or something like that, it's a good way to buy in and take ownership of a property or project. But our focus is going to be on in situ recovery. And as you have seen, we've been trying to sell off some of our conventional properties. But are there any specific targets? I would say, obviously, if I wouldn't be able to discuss it anyway, but right now, there's a lot of discussion about it. But I would say that the discussions that you see online about and whether on X or other forums, there's probably a lot of people looking at these opportunities and trying to find a marriage between us and them. But we're always, but again, we're going to focus on production first, but we're always open to M&A, and we'll do it opportunistically when we see the right opportunity to do it. Is there anything in the works? Obviously, I can't. We're still finalizing the Boss deal, so but as you know, there's probably a handful of names of companies one can think of in the United States. We're not looking to go up to Athabasca or anything like that. simply because it's a pretty crowded field up there. We like where we're at in the U.S.
Okay, that is a good answer. Thank you for clarifying that. But just one other thing. So you would exclude conventional mining companies or projects in M&A?
Well, obviously, we acquired our conventional properties through M&A, so we wouldn't exclude it if there was something that brought value to the table that would be in such a recoverable.
Mm-hmm.
That's the key, is that, you know, everything we got to do has got to be accretive to the strategy of the company, not just to do a deal. And it's got to be a positive value for our shareholders, but also it's got to be something we can execute on. I mean, you know, the biggest challenge we see in the conventional space in the United States is just the lack of milling capacity. And building a mill is not for the faint-hearted. And there's mills that are I think there's 3 standing mills right now, one of which is owned by Energy Fuels, and the other one's owned by Rio Tinto, and obviously Anfield has one. They all have their own unique abilities and their unique locations.
And you have a share in Anfield Energy.
We do. That I would call that an investment in a conventional play. We did that through our sale of obviously Guantafoya Marquez project, which we've always liked as a project. You know, we did a PEA on it and everything else. But again, to really take advantage of it, you need a mill to make it work. And Anfield gave us what we felt was a fair value. And we are using our, you know, the agreement where we took a board seat and all that to try and drive, trying to support Anfield as they look to become a near-term producer.
Okay, you have announced last week, I think, appointment of new chief financial officer. What happened with the old CFO? I think Carrie was her name, I believe.
Yeah, it's Carrie Murky, and she's been with us. I brought on Carrie back in 2020, early 2021, maybe late 2020. I'll get it figured out sooner or later. And she's been someone who's worked with me for years. You know, when you reach a certain size in the company, there's certain things that, you know, just, you know, with her, she has her own personal things she wants to do and her own personal objectives. It was just we came, you know, it was just time she felt that she needed to look at other, you know, places, things to do. She has a family, she's and an extended family as well, and so just the level of work, the intensity of the work that you have with a much larger company, it was you know, and I'm going to tell you, I just enjoyed the heck out of working with Carrie, and she's a wonderful person. And she's going to be an asset wherever she decides to go. And bringing on Shona Wilson has been a great deal too. She's a wonderful person, very strategic, you know, what we would call as we move into the size of the company we're in, it's the right person for our time where we're moving to now. And she's already showing her impact already, even though she's only been on the job for 2 weeks. So it's been a very positive development. And, you know, with respect to Carrie's departure, I just want to tell, you know, I can only say nothing but good things about our experience with her. And I'm hoping she feels the same way. At least she's told me that. But, you know, we're moving on, and feel very good about the people we brought on recently as we continue to advance in our sphere.
Okay, final question, Paul. That is a question I usually ask as a first question. What's your take on current uranium market? How do you see uranium equities performance going forward?
Well, I'll discuss the uranium market first and try to segue that into uranium equities.
Okay.
On the uranium market side, I still think that we're in for additional pressure on the price. And I say that because I've been working, you know, we've been in the market with utilities and everything out and other players there's a lot of demand in the very short term as companies, as these utilities and others try to solve their issues with material that they would expect to come out of Kazakhstan or Russia. And it's simply because the logistics, part of it's logistics, part of it's obviously geopolitics, but they've created some real supply chain risk at that point. And also don't forget about Africa as well, where we've seen some dramatic changes. So it's changed a lot of companies to look at their supply chains. We have some utilities that are finally at the point where they can be more discretionary in what they're doing, or rather than living hand to mouth, because the power rates have been relatively low in the U.S. Power rates are much higher, and we've got the new under the Inflation Reduction Act in the U.S. we have the nuclear production tax credit, which is making even some of the more the plants that we're talking about shutting down, now they're doing license extensions and power uprates.
Yeah.
So there's more demand coming in, and it's coming in relatively, over the next 3 years, and we're seeing a pinch point and on demand. So if one looks at if you recall, I don't know if you remember the W&A curve that came out in September on supply demand. It never, if you look at it very closely, it never actually closes the supply demand gap. And they have this unspecified supply source that's going to be filling that gap. Well, we're still very much early on that curve, and there's still a big gap. And that gap maybe on quantum isn't as big as people think it is, but on availability of material, it's really tight. The supply, or the spot supply, all you have to do is look at the spot market, and the volume on the spot market has been declining year by year. And that's not out of lack of design. It's fact is that there's not as much froth in the market. There's not as much material being transmitted, and anything that gets on the spot market finds a home right away. And so that is going to lead us to, I think, and I know this is a bit forward-looking, but certainly increasing pressure on the uranium price as demand goes up. We've seen it in conversion. We've seen it in enrichment. And I think it's uranium is starting to feel that pressure. We've kind of hit a pause at the moment, but there still seems to be resistance around that $100 number. And so I see that as long as we hold in that position, we're going to move up. We've seen this multiple times over the last couple of years, if you recall. You go up, jump up, and you flatten out. Jump up and flatten out. I see the same trend happening. What's that going to do to uranium equities? I still think we're still in the early phases of the game with respect to uranium equities. I'm a baseball fan, so I love baseball. So we're not anywhere close to the ninth inning. We haven't even hit the seventh inning stretch. We're still very much early in the innings, and there's a whole lot of baseball to play.
Investors like to hear that, definitely.
Yeah, that's my opinion. That's all it is an opinion. And but there's, I've been in this business for nearly 38 years, and I've been through a lot of boom times, a few boom times, and a whole lot of down times.
Yeah.
And the difference I see today is that supply demand is not going away. And when I talk to utilities, they don't get mad when they hear a $100 number anymore. 2 years ago, they would have been offended, but now it's like almost the norm. So I think from a sensitivity perspective and everything else, I think that I think there's going to be pressure enough on uranium supply that's going to push that the price is going to move up. Where? I don't know at this point, but I still think that demand's there. Will it come back down? Who knows? When I look at the tea leaves and I look at the supply chain, supply demand, and also let's not forget about inflation.
Yeah,
inflation is still biting us on the end. So everything's costing more, and so we may see inflationary pressures acting almost as a floor on the price as well, because we still got to get it out of the ground. We still got to put it into the fuel cycle, and we got to be able to do it and make a return for our shareholders. We're not the government. This is not a government business. This is a public company, that's running under the faith of our shareholders, faith and support of our shareholders. So we got to make sure we're protecting our bottom line so that we can assure they get their top line out of it.
Good point, Paul. That was Paul Goranson, enCore Energy Chief Executive Officer. Paul, thank you very much once again for coming to my show, and let's catch up sometime soon again.
I love it. That'd be great. Let's do it again.